So, a lot of people are asking, what is the deal with StarCraft 2 in the year 2025? As you may already know, or you may be noticing as you're watching this video, nothing in StarCraft has been announced yet. We don't know what's going on with GSL. We don't know if there's going to be any Dream Hacks or any other big overseas events. SSL, formerly known as ASL, has not been announced yet, although I'm actually pretty confident that'll be fine. That kind of is running on its own. It's funded by Soup, now Africa TV, now Soup. So that announcement should be coming, but even that's not been announced yet, I think in part because we don't have any studio dates booked for anything if there is StarCraft 2. And so how do we know if there's going to be anything with StarCraft 2 at all in the year? It's going to come down to whether or not it's going to be announced at the Esports World Cup. Now, for those of you, and by the way, I've found out a decent number of people that follow StarCraft are not really tuned into kind of how do these leagues operate? You know, how do they make money? Who funds them? Who's in control of them? Who's making the decisions? So just a very brief rundown of the history of StarCraft all the way to now. StarCraft 1 was run by Kespa and Korean broadcast companies without the permission of Blizzard. Blizzard obviously wanted a piece of that, and so with StarCraft 2, Blizzard took full control and was supporting StarCraft 2 for about a decade. About a full decade, everything was run through Blizzard. It was why anytime you saw the StarCraft 2 World Finals, it was always at a BlizzCon, right? And so as time passed, it appeared that that's kind of where it was always going to be, and it made sense. Mike Morheim was a huge fan of StarCraft esports and really wanted to support it, and I think Blizzard did a great job back then. In some ways, that was kind of the golden era for StarCraft 2. Now, Blizzard is run by completely different people. I was just at the Blizzard headquarters about a month ago to film a Hearthstone commercial for the StarCraft PAX edition that was in Hearthstone. It was kind of weird being down there. Great people, the new people that are there, but it's like interesting after going to in and out of the offices there for a long time to kind of see everybody's basically different. One of the big things that's happening now is Blizzard doesn't want to support esports. And one of the reasons why they don't want to support esports is because Overwatch League was such a catastrophic failure and a money sink. So when Blizzard, when everybody that was at Blizzard ended up leaving and was forced out, we didn't really know what the future was going to be. At the same time, the Saudis bought ESL, which is now known as EFG. There was a company called Faceit, or a Faceit Group, I think. They funded a lot of the and produced a lot of the Counter-Strike events. They merged with ESL, which I think anybody who's followed esports since the early days knows ESL. They were a German-centered company that did a lot of the big international events. They also own DreamHack now. So while that's happened, the Saudis have decided to make the Esports World Cup, and so pretty much, I would say maybe like 85-90% of all esports titles are kind of under this umbrella. They're funding this in the hopes to bring tourism to Saudi Arabia. They're basically trying to rebuild Riyadh and Jeddah and their other cities to look more like Dubai. If you've been to Dubai, it's kind of a massive modern city in the desert. So the Saudis are trying to do that. They're not just doing this with esports, they're doing this with other sports as well. Golf is probably the prime example. They've done it with, or they're doing it with tennis and some other things too. So anyways, in order to understand whether or not anything will be happening with StarCraft 2, we have to find out if there will be a World Finals in the Esports World Cup for StarCraft. Because if that's going to be there, they need to have all these events that would be kind of like qualifiers or filter events to get into this World Finals. Now, as I'm going to scroll down here, you can see we've got a lot of games you're probably already familiar with: Call of Duty, Counter-Strike 2, Dota, Street Fighter. Some you might not be as familiar with: Honor of Kings, Free Fire. But pretty much almost all the major esports titles are here. Earlier today, League of Legends, Teamfight Tactics, and Valorant were all announced at the same time, so they worked out some kind of deal with Riot. And this leaves only 2 spots here. We see it's 17 days, 12 hours, and 19 minutes as of the recording of this video. When I look at this, there's only 3 games that come to mind that have not been announced yet that are that could be here. The one that if you're watching this channel, you're probably crossing your fingers and hoping it's going to be there, would be Starcraft 2. The other 2 would be Tekken 8 and Fortnite. And from what I know, both those games are not ideal. Those publishers are not as ideal or easy to work with. And I would also include Blizzard, probably not easy to work with as far as esports stuff goes. So we're hoping something is going to get sorted out. If not, it doesn't mean that there will be no StarCraft 2 tournaments, but it would mean that it is finally not officially being backed by any kind of giga-rich org. So it doesn't mean that if there's no StarCraft 2 at the Esports World Cup, there can't be StarCraft 2 events or tournaments, but it will have to be completely community run. And so, assuming the countdown is correct, we will know in about 2.5 weeks if it's going to be supported or not. Either way, I think this will probably be the last year for StarCraft 2 to be officially backed. And I know that there's a lot of doomers and naysayers in StarCraft in general. I am not one of them, but I think when you're hearing this from me, you should probably take it seriously. Even though the Saudis are funding these massive $1 million prize pools, they only want to work with publishers that will also work with them and support them. And that means, like, you know, working on the balance in the game, making maps, stuff like that. So if Blizzard's going to fully back out, which, by the way, I feel like this is sort of a mistake from Blizzard. You know, Blizzard really screwed up with Overwatch League. Nobody said you had to make something like Overwatch League. You know, they could easily have, let's say, Starcraft and Hearthstone here and support the players and the people that love their game. But it's not going to happen, it looks like, this time. So hopefully we can get something with StarCraft 2. For those of you that are wondering, like, well, why... I get a lot of questions about this. Why does StarCraft 1 seem to be doing fine and StarCraft 2 seem to be kind of struggling? Even though, by the way, both the player bases are roughly the same. Why, if, as an example, is StarCraft 1 in Korea flourishing and doing very well, and StarCraft 2 seems to be on struggle street? Because StarCraft 1 was originally backed by people outside of Blizzard, it sort of had its own infrastructure and was able to sustain itself without having to have direct funding from Blizzard. Now, when Blizzard came in and helped with StarCraft 2 and basically ran everything and funded it, it was great. In a lot of ways, StarCraft 2 was so much better run and so much better to be part of, to be honest, as someone who casted both, than StarCraft 1 was. The problem is when you pull the plug out from that, you've destroyed suddenly all the support systems and infrastructure and organizational powers that were there. And so it kind of knocks StarCraft 2 into this really bad spiral. The second reason is that StarCraft 1, all the biggest players stream constantly. Any evening in Korea, like before I go to bed, for instance, I've got 2 monitors on my PC. I don't sit at this computer when I'm not streaming. I have a computer in my living room that I hang out at. When I'm there, on my second monitor, I always have Brood War games that are happening live. Watching first person with like Flash or Bisu or Best or any of those guys. So with StarCraft 2, a lot of the best players don't stream because they didn't have to, because they were making so much money from prize pools and being on teams. And that's another thing that's basically hurt the game. You know, you don't often see Serral or Maru, as an example, streaming the game. And if they were to do that, that would probably also help. So StarCraft 2 doesn't mean that people have to stop playing it or there has to stop being prize pools. But if the Saudis do pull out here, we're going to have to start getting funding, whether it's community support or something, if the game's going to exist. On a bigger note, I do want to point out, I feel like the Esports World Cup should have an RTS game. I mean, I think we can all agree, whether or not you're a fan of RTS games, it's undeniable that this is one of the games that is an esport. Even if we're not the biggest, even if we're the size of, let's say, tennis compared to soccer, something should be there. And there's a couple RTS games that are old that, I don't know, maybe could fill this spot. Maybe Age of Empires? I don't know. But it just feels like you have to have something. Obviously, they've got plenty of shooters. I almost feel like they have too many shooters. They've got at least 2 fighting games. I think the chess.com move here was a pretty smart call to kind of bring in more old school legitimacy. I could do a whole other... Actually, I literally did a whole other video on that on my YouTube if you want to check that out. But yeah, fingers crossed that they can do something here with StarCraft 2. I would love to have another year to work on this. Is Marvel Rivals not there? No, not yet. But maybe they could be next year. I think it's going to get more and more competitive. Who's going to get a slot in this? Yeah, it's... there was one other thing I wanted to say. Now I can't remember. I lost my train of thought. But basically... Oh, that's right. If it's not going to be StarCraft 2 this year or next year, there probably needs to be, even though there's old RTS games that are solid, whether it's Warcraft 3, obviously not going to happen, Blizzard-backed. Age of Empires, I don't really know what Microsoft thinks about that. Age 2 is bigger than Age 4. Sometimes publishers just want to push their newest game. But no matter what, I think we're going to have a new RTS game that comes out that will take this place, not just for esports, but just as kind of like the new game that everybody's playing that's going to be actively managed. I don't know which game that's going to be. I would hope it could be more than one RTS game, but it's going to basically be up to the next generation of RTS games, probably in 2026, to figure out, who's going to be competing, where the money is going to go, where the events are going to be. But yeah, anyways, if you're watching this video, let me know what you think about this in the comments section. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Will we have another year of StarCraft 2? Is this the end? I hope not. Have a good one. I will see you in another video. Bye-bye.